Welcome to Jazz Piano Skills. I'm Dr. Bob Lawrence. It's time to discover, learn, and play jazz piano. Today, you are going to discover 2-5-1 enclosures. You're going to learn how to construct 2-5-1 melodic lines using ascending and descending arpeggio and scale motion. And you are going to play various 2-5-1 improvisational ideas using enclosures to decorate 2-5-1 arpeggio and scale motion. So as I always like to say, regardless of where you are in your jazz journey, a beginner, an intermediate player, an advanced player, or even if you are an experienced professional, you will find this Jazz Piano Skills podcast lesson exploring 2-5-1 enclosures to be very beneficial. If you are new to Jazz Piano Skills, if you are a new listener to the Jazz Piano Skills podcast, I want to personally invite you to become a Jazz Piano Skills member. Visit JazzPianoSkills.com to learn more about the abundance, and I mean abundance, of jazz educational resources and services that are available for you to use. For example, as a Jazz Piano Skills member, you will have access to all of the educational podcast packets, the illustrations, the lead sheets, the play-alongs that are available for every podcast episode, every one. As a Jazz Piano Skills member, you also have access to the sequential jazz piano curriculum, which is loaded with comprehensive courses using a self-paced format, educational talks, interactive media, video demonstrations, and play-alongs. A tremendous resource to help you develop as a jazz pianist. You will also, as a Jazz Piano Skills member, have access to the online weekly masterclasses, which are, in essence, a 1-hour online lesson with me every week. You will also have access to the private jazz piano community, hosting a variety of engaging forums, podcast-specific forums, and course-specific forums. And last, but certainly not least, unlimited, private, personal, and professional educational support. Again, visit JazzPianoSkills.com to learn more about all of the educational opportunities and how to easily activate your membership. If you have any questions at all, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. I'm always happy to answer any questions that you may have and to help you in any way that I can. Okay, let's discover, learn, and play jazz piano. Let's discover, learn, and play 2-5-1 enclosures. The last 3 weeks, we have explored inverted melodic shapes for the major, dominant, and minor sounds. The focus of each of the last 3 podcast episodes was to illuminate the oneness, the sameness of harmony and melody. The goal, to see harmony and melody as one. And quite honestly, if we are unable to see harmony as a roadmap, a blueprint to melodic invention, then any aspirations we have of being able to creatively express ourselves improvisationally, they're in vain. And this makes sense since harmony produces a musical sound, major, dominant, minor, half diminished, diminished. It produces that sound vertically. And melody expresses the same musical sound horizontally, linearly. Can a harmonic representation of a musical sound exist without a melodic representation of the same sound? Let me ask that question again. Can a harmonic representation of a musical sound exist without a melodic representation of the same sound? The answer, yes. Of course, harmony can exist without melody. I could sit here and play all kinds of chords, right? No melody. So now the opposite question can be asked. Can a melodic representation of a musical sound exist without a harmonic representation of the same sound? The answer? No. And why? Because harmony is the very essence of melody. I think I'm saying that correctly, right? Harmony is the very essence of melody. In other words, we can, with great accuracy, look at a melodic idea and pinpoint the harmony from which the melody flows. A simplistic way of stating this reality is melody must always concur with harmony. When I was a young boy trying to figure out how to play jazz, how to improvise, old jazzers always used to say to me, Bob, if you want to get good at creating melodies, improvising, then study harmony. Of course, at that time, I had no earthly idea what they were trying to tell me. In fact, I thought they were nuts because I saw harmony and melody as being two very distinct things. Now, of course, because wisdom typically comes with age and experience, and I certainly have age and experience, but because wisdom typically comes with age and experience, I know exactly what they were trying to say to me. They were saying to me what I have been trying to drive home for you in the last 3 podcast episodes, that melody flows from harmony. They are one and the same. One in a solid form, harmony, and one in a liquid form, melody. So, after making a nexus between harmony and melody, we took 4 harmonic shapes: root position, first inversion, second inversion, third inversion, of each major, dominant, and minor sound, and turned them into melody using ascending and descending arpeggio and scale motion. We established a very methodical and formulaic way of producing melody from harmony. And I want to stress again why this is so important. Why having a methodical and formulaic way of producing melodic ideas is crucial to your development. Because having a methodical and formulaic way of practicing any jazz piano skill makes it possible to replicate it from chord to chord and from key to key. No methodical, systematic, formulaic way to practice means that you have elected to use a random approach when practicing. And unfortunately, you can't replicate randomness. And not only that, it is impossible for randomness to produce conceptual, oral, and physical memory. And no conceptual, oral, and physical memory means no improvisation. Additionally, throughout the past 3 weeks, I stressed the importance of 2 musical facts. Fact number 1, there are only 2 types of melodic motion in music: arpeggio and scale motion. Fact number 2, there are only 2 directions melodic motion can travel: ascending and descending. So in other words, we create melodies, we improvise using arpeggios and scales that go up and down. That's it. I wish I could make it more complicated than that because it would really be much more impressive. But I can't. These are musical facts that every musician must adhere to when playing because that is all we have. Ascending and descending, arpeggio and scale motion. But even with all of that being said, we found out there are ways we can decorate or camouflage the arpeggios and scales so that they do not sound like arpeggios and scales. The approach we have been studying the last 3 weeks is enclosures. And what exactly are enclosures? Enclosures approach a selected target note, a root, a third, a fifth, a seventh, using a lower neighboring tone, 1/2 step below the target note, followed by an upper neighboring tone, the closest diatonic note above the target note. And typically, we come out of those enclosures with arpeggio or scale motion. Now, enclosures, as I have stressed in the previous podcast episodes, do not always have to follow this rule of thumb. In fact, I would encourage you to always trust your ears and make musical decisions based on sound and not on theory. And again, I remember my teacher always used to constantly remind me that if it sounds good, it is good. And if it sounds bad, it is bad. In other words, trust your ears, regardless as to whether or not something is theoretically correct or theoretically incorrect. Always trust your ears and make decisions, musical decisions, based upon what you are hearing. So today we are going to retain our methodical and formulaic approach to practicing creativity, to practicing melodic improvisation, as we pull the last 3 weeks of study together and place it all within the context of the most iconic jazz progression of all, the 2-5-1 progression. Now, here is the format for today. Number 1, I will be playing all demonstrations today in the key of B flat major. Number 2, all demonstrations will use a 4-measure format. The 2-chord C minor in measure 1, the 5-chord F dominant in measure 2, and the 1-chord B flat major 7 in measures 3 and 4. Number 3, the tempo for today for all demonstrations is 120. Number 4, the groove for today is going to be a traditional jazz swing. Number 5, I'm going to present 4 sets of 2-5-1 melodic lines using ascending and descending arpeggio and scale motion. Number 6, each set consists of 2 demonstrations. In the first demonstration, I will play my original musical line that was methodically and formulaically constructed using ascending and descending arpeggio and scale motion. In the second demonstration, I will strategically place enclosures around various target notes within the arpeggio and scale. This compare and contrast approach will help illuminate how the addition of enclosures decorate and camouflage arpeggios and scales so that they do not sound like arpeggios and scales, which, by the way, has been the entire point of the last 3 Jazz Piano Skills podcast episodes. And number 7, I will play the 2-5-1 musical line in each demonstration in 2 different octaves, so you can simply hear how the ideas sound when played in different geographical regions on the piano. This is not only going to be a tremendous way for us to wrap up our 4-week series on the importance of converting the shapes of harmonic inversions into melodic ideas with the addition of enclosures, it will also be a ton of fun. So let's do this. Oh, but before we do, all Jazz Piano Skills members, please take the time to download and print the podcast packets for this episode. As I always like to say, a picture is worth 1,000 words, and you are definitely going to want to have these documents under your eyes. The lead sheets lay out the melodic ideas I'm about to play, lays those ideas out for you in all 12 keys. You can practice the various keys throughout the week, but for now, just grab the key of B-flat lead sheet to follow along with. And the illustrations outline, those illustrations outline for you, again, in all 12 keys, the 2-5-1 progression, the scales, the arpeggios, and the enclosures for the root, third, fifth, and seventh of each chord tone of the 2-chord, 5-chord, and the 1-chord. I'm just saying, very invaluable educational tools to use when studying and practicing and when listening. So take a second right now and download and print those podcast packets. Okay, so let's check out the first demonstration. Demonstration number 1, key of B flat major. It's going to be the 2-5-1 progression, C minor to F dominant to B flat major. I'm going to start with an ascending C minor 7 arpeggio, launching from the root, launching from the note C up to B flat. Just like that. I'm going to descend on the F dominant using scale motion in second inversion. In other words, starting on the note A and descending down to the note C. Then I'm going to ascend on the B flat major using arpeggio motion in first inversion. In other words, starting on the note D and ascending up to the note B flat. So when I put all that together, C minor, ascending arpeggio, coming down scale on the F dominant 7, and back up to the through the B flat major with an arpeggio. Right? Again. That's it. Classic 8th note feel. I'm going to repeat, and repeat this pattern, right? I'm going to stay focused. I'm going to zone in. No doodling. It's a musical exercise designed, composed to help develop conceptual, oral, and physical memory needed for improvising. Remember, random thoughts won't get the job done. So I'm focusing on seeing the harmony and melody as one. I want to see my melodic line as outlining the chord changes. The 2-chord C minor 7, the 5-chord F dominant 7, and the 1-chord B flat major 7. So let's bring the ensemble in and let's check this out. Here we go. nice, right? You know, the reality is that that's a nice musical line. That's a nice musical thought just in and of itself, without applying any kind of decoration or camouflage, right? But that's exactly what we're going to do right now. So demonstration number 2, again, key of B flat major. Everything I just played, I'm going to play exactly everything that I just played, but now with the addition of enclosures. So on the C minor 7, I'm going to place an enclosure around the root. Okay, so it's going to go B to D to C. Right? Then arpeggio motion up to the B flat. Let me play that again. Just like that. Now on the F dominant 7, on the scale motion, descending scale motion, I'm going to place an enclosure around the 7th, around the E flat. So I'm going to come down and it's going to sound like this. There's my enclosure, right? Nice. And now on the B flat major, I'm going to add an enclosure around the 5th as I ascend using arpeggio motion. So my E, G is my enclosure around the note F. So when I put that entire line together now, it sounds like this. Wow. So again, classic 8th note feel. I'm going to repeat. I'm going to focus. I'm going to zone in, no doodling. Again, it's a musical exercise designed, composed to help develop conceptual, oral, and physical memory needed for improvising. And again, remember, random thoughts won't get the job done. So I want to focus on seeing harmony and melody as one. I want to see my melodic line as outlining the chord changes. The 2 chord C minor 7, the 5 chord F dominant 7, and the 1 chord B flat major 7. I want to see my melodic line outlining those chords even with the enclosures added. In other words, I want to be able to see through the enclosures, which are musical decorations, simply a way to camouflage the arpeggio and the scale. So let's bring the ensemble in and let's check this out and see what we think. Here we go. Wow. What I tell you, right? Decoration, camouflage. That line no longer sounds like, that whole musical thought no longer sounds like I'm simply going up an arpeggio, coming down in scale, going up an arpeggio, right? Very musical, very jazz-like, authentic jazz language. Okay, so now let's move on to demo 3, demonstration number 3. Again, key of B flat major. Again, 2-5-1 progression, C minor 7, F dominant to B flat major. My C minor 7 is going to use ascending arpeggio motion again, right? So this time though, however, I am going to start on the third. My entry point will be the third of the C minor. And I'm going to ascend using first inversion from the E flat up to that C. Okay? I'm going to descend the F dominant 7 using scale motion again, starting on the note C down to the note E flat, or F dominant in third inversion. And then ascend through the B flat major 7 again using arpeggio motion in second inversion. In other words, starting on the note F and arpeggiating up to the note D. Just like that. So when I put it all together, now my line is going to sound like this. Nice, right? And just as I did before, I'm going to repeat the exercise, the melodic line several times, right? Several times. I'm going to zone in here. It's a musical exercise that is designed, that is composed to help develop what? Conceptual, oral, and physical memory that is needed for what? Improvising. And again, random thoughts won't get the job done. We need a formulaic, a methodical and formulaic approach, which we are doing now. Focus on seeing the harmony and melody as one. I want to see my melodic line as outlining, literally outlining the chord changes. The 2 chord C minor 7, the 5 chord F dominant 7, and the 1 chord B flat major 7. So let's bring the ensemble in. Let's check it out. Here we go. Again, not too shabby, right? You could play that idea while improvising, and it's going to sound just fine. No decoration, no camouflage needed. However, let's see what that does. Let's see what happens when we decorate and we camouflage this melodic line. So next demonstration, I'm going to play again everything in B flat. Everything I just played, I'm going to play it the same melodic line again, but with the addition of enclosures. So on my C minor 7, I am going to place an enclosure now around the 5th. So I'm going to have an F sharp on my lower neighboring tone and A as my upper neighboring tone before I land on the note G. So I'm ascending through my C minor using arpeggio motion with an enclosure around the 5th. And it's going to sound like this. Nice. Again. And I'm going to come down my F dominant 7 using scale motion, again in third inversion, starting on the note C, but I'm going to place an enclosure around the 2nd or the 9th. And it's going to sound like this. Again. Very nice. And I'm going to follow that with ascending arpeggio motion on the B flat major with an enclosure around the 5th, an enclosure around the note F. So my lower neighboring tone is E, upper neighboring tone G, followed by the F, my target note. So the arpeggio sounds like this. Wow. So when I put that whole entire line together with the enclosures added, it now sounds like this. Wow, let's bring the ensemble in and let's check this out. Oh, but before we do, right, I'm going to repeat it what? Several times. And why? Why repeating it several times? Because we want to develop conceptual, oral, and physical memory needed for improvising. Again, random thoughts won't get the job done. I want to focus on seeing harmony and melody as one. I want to see my melodic line as outlining the chord changes. I want to be able to see through the enclosures and be able to see the decoration as decoration and the arpeggio and the scale as the arpeggio and scale. So let's bring the ensemble in. Let's check it out and see what we think. Here we go. Wow. Really nice, right? I want to make a point. I'm using the same formulaic approach on all the demonstrations today. I'm using arpeggio motion on the 2 chord, ascending arpeggio motion on the 2 chord, descending scale motion on the 5 chord, ascending arpeggio motion on the 1 chord. Of course, we can mix and match that, right? We can go descending, ascending, descending. We can go ascending, ascending, descending, 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 ascending, right? You get the point. I can mix and match it however I want. However, today, to keep things really, the continuity from demonstration to demonstration, I'm using the same formulaic approach. Ascending arpeggio motion on the 2, descending scale motion on the 5, ascending arpeggio motion on the 1. And if you've noticed already, my entry point for the melodic line started with the root of C minor for demonstrations 1 and 2, and then demonstrations 3 and 4, I moved the entry point to the 3rd. So guess what we're going to do now? We're going to shift our entry point to the 5th of C minor. So again, we're in the key of B flat major, 2-5-1 progression, C minor 7 to F dominant 7 to B flat major 7. Our C minor 7 is going to use ascending arpeggio motion, launching from the 5th, from the G, right? So it's second inversion. And then we're going to follow that with descending scale motion on the F dominant 7 from the E flat down to the F, or root position. Followed by ascending B flat major arpeggio from the A up to the F, or third inversion. So if I put the entire line together, it's going to sound like this. Nice. So I'm going to repeat this melodic line over and over again, staying focused, zoning in. Again, musical exercise that has been designed, that I have composed to help me develop conceptual, oral, and physical memory needed for improvising. And again, random thoughts won't get the job done. I'm repeating all of this information every time because as an educator, it's so important. I keep repeating it so it sinks in. Now, focus on seeing the harmony and melody as one. I want to see my melodic line outlining the chord changes. I want to see the 2 chord in my melodic line. I want to see the 5 chord in my melodic line. I want to see the 1 chord in my melodic line. So let's bring the ensemble in, let's check it out, and see what we think. Pretty cool, right? You can start to really see how practicing in this way will help you develop jazz vocabulary needed for improvising. So now we're going to add our decoration. We're going to add our enclosures to this melodic line. So I'm now going to place an enclosure around the root of my C minor. So I'm going to have a B natural followed by a D, then landing on the C. So the arpeggio now is going to sound like this. Right? Still, it's an arpeggio in second inversion, but it has that enclosure inside there. Followed by descending scale motion on the F dominant 7, again with an enclosure placed around the root. Okay, so it's going to sound like this. There was my E natural, followed by my G, landing on my F. Again, the entire scale. And I'm going to come out of that with a B flat major arpeggio starting on the note A, right, third inversion, with an enclosure around the third, which is the D. So I have a C sharp, an E flat, then my D. So that arpeggio now sounds like this. Again. So if I put the entire line together with the enclosures added, now my melodic idea sounds like this. Really nice. So let's bring the ensemble back in, and now let's check out the impact that our decorations, that our camouflage, that our enclosures have on our original melodic idea. So here we go. Let's check it out. Very nice. So here we are. We're at our last set of 2 demonstrations, right? Demonstration 7 and demonstration 8. So with demonstration 7, we now shift our entry point to the 7th of C minor. Again, we're in the key of B flat major. We're playing our 2-5-1 progression, C minor 7 to F dominant 7 to B flat major 7. So we begin with our entry point being the 7th, the B flat, which is 3rd inversion, and we arpeggiate up to the G. Nice. We're going to descend on the F dominant 7 using scale motion, starting on the root, down to the note, the root F, and down to the note A, the 3rd, which is 1st inversion. And then descend through our B flat major using ascending arpeggio motion in root position, starting on B flat up to the note A. So our entire melodic line sounds like this. Nice. So let's bring the ensemble in once again, and let's listen to how this melodic line sounds over 2-5-1. Again, classic jazz 8th note feel. I'm going to repeat it several times, zoning in and focusing on developing conceptual, oral, and physical memory that is needed for improvising. Not going to allow random thoughts to be my method of practicing. I'm going to utilize this methodical and formulaic approach. I'm going to focus on seeing harmony and melody as one. I want to see the melodic line that I am playing as literally outlining the chord changes. I want to see my melodic line as the 2 chord, C minor 7. And then I want to see my melodic line as the 5 chord, F dominant 7, and see my melodic line, the 1 chord, as B flat major 7. So let's bring the ensemble in and let's listen to this melodic idea. Here we go. Once again, with any of the original melodic ideas today, I've presented 4 of them, any of them without any of the decorations, without any of the enclosures added, fantastic, right? You can play those lines when improvising and they're going to sound wonderful. So now let's add our enclosures to this last melodic idea and see what happens. So I'm going to add an enclosure around the 5th of my C minor, so around the note G. So my enclosure is going to be an F sharp and A around the note G. So my arpeggio now sounds like this. That's nice. Listen to that again. Now I'm going to add enclosures, yes, more than one, on my descending scale motion for my F dominant. So I'm going to add an enclosure around the root, and I'm going to add an enclosure around the 5th. So when I play that scale motion descending, right, in 1st inversion from the F down to the A, with my enclosures around the root and the fifth, that scale now sounds like this. Wow. Again. And then I'm going to ascend. And actually, I didn't go down all the way to the A, right? I just went down to the C there. Because now I'm going to place an enclosure. I'm going to play the A, but in relationship to B flat. I'm going to place an enclosure around my B flat, A, C, and B flat, and then ascend my root position arpeggio for B flat major. So I get very nice. Now the entire line with the enclosures added sounds like this. Wow. Sounds nothing like just simple arpeggio and scale motion. I guarantee it. So let's bring the ensemble in. Let's place this into a musical context. Let's see what we think. Let's see what this sounds like. Here we go. Once again, what can I say? Between the last 3 podcast episodes, the last 3 podcast lessons, along with this episode, the conclusion of the series, that brings all of our inverted melodic shapes with enclosures together and places them within the musical context of the iconic 2-5-1 progression, to help us begin developing jazz vocabulary for improvising is simply, to say the very least, astonishing. This is not an overstatement. Once you begin to conceptually, orally, and physically recognize that a methodical and formulaic approach is needed to begin developing musical creativity, to begin improvising, and that the methodical and formulaic approach must utilize the only 2 types of melodic motion that exist in music, arpeggio and scale motion, and that the arpeggio and scale motion can only travel one of 2 directions, ascending and descending, and your daily practicing is governed by and reflects this understanding, then you are on your way to becoming an accomplished jazz musician. Congratulations. Use what I have taught you over the past 4 weeks to begin developing your own melodic ideas using ascending and descending arpeggio and scale motion with enclosures. Your musical growth will explode. Well, I hope you have found this Jazz Piano Skills podcast lesson, exploring 2-5-1 enclosures, to be insightful and, of course, beneficial. Don't forget, if you are a Jazz Piano Skills member, I will see you online Thursday evening at the Jazz Piano Skills Masterclass, 8 p.m. Central Time, to discuss this podcast episode lesson, 2-5-1 enclosures, in greater detail, and to answer any questions that you may have about the study of jazz in general. And again, as a Jazz Piano Skills member, be sure to use the educational podcast packets, the illustrations, the lead sheets, the play-alongs for this podcast lesson and for every podcast episode. Also, be sure to use the Jazz Piano Skills courses to maximize your musical growth. Likewise, make sure you are an active participant in the Jazz Piano Skills community. Get involved, contribute to the various forums, and most importantly, make some new jazz piano friends. Always a great thing to do. And as always, you can reach me by phone at 972-380-8050, extension 211, by email, Dr. Lawrence, drlawrence at jazzpianoskills.com, or by SpeakPipe, found throughout the entire Jazz Piano Skills website. Well, there's my cue. That's it for now. And until next week, enjoy the 251 Enclosures. Enjoy the journey. And most of all, have fun as you discover, learn, and play jazz piano.